Well, good evening, everybody. This is Jimmie Bratcher, and I'm so glad that you are here and that you have joined me on this rainy Wednesday afternoon here in Kansas City. Sherry and I are we live in a house of conflict right now because she loves the fall, and I don't like the fall because I know what happens next, which is winter. And so, anyway, so I quit whining. Wah, wah. I was just thinking about what to do next. We just completed the series on the three dominant spirits of our time, which are fear, division, and distraction. And I got to thinking, I was working on some stuff, and I did a post yesterday on Facebook. I don't know if you saw that on my personal profile page. Some of you aren't on there, which is fine because I can post it on my on the Rev Jimmie Bratcher page as well. But it just got me to thinking, and so I am working. As you notice back here, I have a studio microphone set up. I've got my electric guitar or my acoustic guitar. I had my friend Matt Russo come over and work on some stuff with me. I should have done all this before we started, but I don't know how this will sound. So anyway, I'm struggling technically, but I tried to record a couple of songs using my mic over here, and it didn't work out. So anyway, I'm disappointed, but I am working on it. I'm going to figure it out and get it. It's just part of the control freak perfectionist thing that I have going on in me. But I got to thinking about this song. It's from my very first album. It's a title track, and it's called Honey in the Rock. And it's an important song for me in that it happened to us. The song came to me at a time when I was freaking out, like I have been the last couple of days. And Sherry and I had just resigned our staff positions at the church, and we were stepping out into full-time ministry, which meant, I say that, so we were living by faith. And living by faith is code language for a vocational minister, and it means no salary, no benefits, no nothing. And so you just step out. I remember when we were going through that transition, we didn't really know what we were going to do. We just knew that we couldn't continue to do what we were doing. And so we took that step and resigned. And Sherry said, we were having this conversation one day, and she goes, well, God wouldn't tell us to just go out and not know what we're going to do or where we're going. And I had to share a little biblical knowledge with her and say, well, that's what he did with Abraham. So we were in this environment where we had no clear sight of our future. And it was late February 2000. We had set March 1st as a drop dead date when we were leaving the church, regardless of if we had our plan all worked out or some place to go. And in my heart, I thought, I'm going to pastor a church, because that's what my resume did. As my resume said, I had all these credentials and being in the, top 20 fastest growing churches in America. Woohoo! And it was great because so many lives were being changed through the ministry while we were there at the church. But I just couldn't do what we were doing. So it's late February. We're down in Jackson, Mississippi, with our friends Danny and Karen Sims. Danny has passed away. And he had a prophetic word for us and said, tomorrow I'm going to tell you, or you're going to know what you're going to do. And so we got in a car and started north on Highway 55, Interstate 55 towards Memphis. And Sherry and I started talking, and we decided, okay, we'll start traveling. And our budget at that point was we needed like, I don't know, like $700 a week or something is what we had to have to pay our bills and survive. We were lean and mean at the time. And so one day I decided, so through the process, I decided I was going to do an album. Larry Howard had invited me to come to his studio in Macon, Georgia, and do this album. And I know I'm rambling. I'm just finding my way. I'm just making stuff up. And so we needed money for it. And so I had this idea, and the idea was I'm going to go sell my Harley, which, for a current note, I sold my Harley a couple of weeks ago. But Sherry knew that was a dream that I had to have that motorcycle. And so I had set this plan up where I went to the Harley store. I talked to them. They said they'd take it in on consignment. And so I went home, was cleaning it up, going to take it out there and put it on the floor. And Sherry comes out and says, well, you can do that if you want to, but you'll probably spend that much money on marriage counseling. Ouch. And so I said, okay, I'm going to let her faith lead us. And some of you couples need to get, especially some of you guys, need to get that concept in your heart that you don't always have to be the guy with the word from the Lord and all the answers and the direction and all of that stuff. Your spouse can have that. And so I said, all right, I don't have the faith for this, but she does. And during that process, we were trying to figure out what it was how we were going to survive. And I remember I was standing in the driveway next to my Harley, and the Lord spoke these words to me. There's honey in the rock. And I didn't know that there was even a Bible verse that said that. I went to my Bible search program and typed in honey and rock, and it came back with Psalm 81:16. And it's talking here about the children of Israel. So now I'm like through all the stories and the introductions, and now I'm back to my main point. So it was talking about the children of Israel there. And there was this rock that followed them in the wilderness. Moses got in trouble with this rock. He missed out on the promised land because the Lord told him to speak to the rock, and Moses took his staff and struck it, and water came out of it. Now, I don't know all the reasons why that disqualified him from the promised land, but I can make some stuff up, if you want. But the verse in Psalm 81:16 says this: he should have fed them also, important word also, with the finest of wheat and with honey out of the rock, should I have satisfied thee. So the children of Israel, all they ever got to experience from that rock was honey, or was water. They didn't get to experience the other provision that was there in that rock. And that spoke to me. And so I wrote the song, Honey in the Rock. It's easy when you see there's something, but what will you do when there's nothing? All I know is there's honey in the rock. And it was a declaration of it was an acknowledgement of my fear. It's easy when you see there's something, but what will you do when there's nothing? And we were at a place in our life where we were facing the nothing fact. And the nothing fact means exactly that. Nothing. Because we are not confined and don't live by the facts. We live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. So Israel had the opportunity to experience this incredible, sweet provision. And I'm not a honey eater, so I don't necessarily like honey, but Israel had this opportunity to experience this sweet dessert that would have added so much to their lives, but they didn't believe it was possible. I was thinking also about Psalm 78 when it's talking about the children of Israel in the wilderness. And this is a verse that has been something that I have used as a precautionary verse in my life. And it's Psalm 78:41, and it says, Yea, King James Version, yea, they turned back and tempted God and limited the Holy One of Israel. He's talking about the children of Israel and how they responded to the prophetic word concerning the promised land. And it says three things here in this verse that I want to point out. Number one, they turned back. It means to retreat. They retreated from a position of faith into a position of unbelief. They tempted, number two, they tempted God, or they wanted to prove God in some way instead of believe God. And I do that all the time, and I know you do too. And number three, they limited God. And that word means to grieve or to limit by confusion. They got caught up in the confusion that was going on around them by the murmuring, the doubts, and the unbelief. And man, that really describes what's going on around us. But still, in reality, in this rock, there's this honey that follows them around. And it hinged on their beliefs, what they believed about the Lord and what they believed about themselves. Were they qualified to receive that? Were they, just that one thought, were they qualified to receive it, is enough to camp out on. But I was thinking about this in context to a post that I did yesterday. I shared yesterday. I found it somewhere on Facebook. And it was a study that was done by the New England Journal of Medicine. And it was incredible. I'm just going to read it to you because it hit me home. I'm 67. I see 70 coming up. And in our culture, both in the church and out of the church, we have this limit set on our age. And that limit is the imaginary limit of 65. When we get to 65, we're done. We're finished. We don't have anything to contribute or share. And what this study found was exactly the opposite. I have some notes on a series that I'm doing called Aged Relevance. This is not part of that, but it might be. But anyway, here's what it says. An extensive study in the USA found that the most productive age in human life is between 60 and 70 years of age. The second most productive stage of the human being is from 70 to 80 years of age. Number three, the third most productive stage is from 50 to 60 years of age. The average age of Nobel Peace Prize winners is 62. The average age of presidents of prominent companies in the world is 63. The average age of pastors of the 100 largest churches in America is 71. And the average age of popes is 76. This tells us in a way that has been determined that the best years of your life are between ages 60 and 80. And I'm going, well, okay. So that's completely counterculture to everything that we are being told, both in the church and outside of the church. And, in the church, one of the most glaring, obvious things of this is when worship leaders are no longer considered relevant because they, are aged. And, I know of one church, at least I've heard this rumor of one church that wouldn't allow anybody on the platform that was over 40 years old. And my response to that, well, was your ego-driven pastor over here is over 60. What about that clown? With all due respect, I say that. And so it tells me that, we can place these self-imposed limits on our life and in our experience, and that we should take a very strong precaution in, that we would not limit God's capacity in us to do some mighty things through us. Now, I just have to be honest. I'm preaching all this to myself. I have to constantly fight this doubt, insecurity, and discontentment that I have experienced as I have aged. And I am pushing back on that one particular thing. And it reminds me of my protest song to aging. It's called When I Fall Apart. And I'm just going to play it. I didn't have this plan. I'm going to play it because it fits with this message. Here you go. Living the illusion, believing the lie. I bide my time, I live with me. One day I know they'll all find out. That's when it all comes down, when I fall apart. Silly old man, what are you trying to do? Hold it together with paper and glue. You better go on, that's what nice old men do. Watch me go up in flames as I fall apart. Falling, falling, when I fall apart. Falling, falling, when I fall apart. There goes my star, if I had one, falling from earth to heaven. All of these lessons I have learned. I don't care what they say, we all fall apart. Falling, falling, when I fall apart. when I fall apart. I feel like I resemble that statement in some ways, but no, I wanted to share that. I hadn't planned on sharing it. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there in the beginning of it. Only have one side of the stereo image on, but I want you to know that God has confidence in us no matter what our age, and we can still be effective in and powerful as we age. And it should be that, as Joshua and Caleb, as Caleb said, I'm 80 years old and I was 40 when I went into the land, and my eyes not dim, and I'm still well able. Give me my mountain. Caleb had a spot picked out, and even when he was 80, he was ready to still go after it. And we should be that way, not only in our zeal for life, but in our zeal with the Lord. And that's one of the things that we have to maintain, is to always be aware of the standard of our first love. What happened when we first came to know Jesus, and how captivated we were by the love that we felt and experienced. I'm pounding on the table here. I'm getting preaching good. I'm pounding on the pulpit. But anyway, I just wanted to share that with you tonight. If you are discouraged, faith is the answer. If you and getting a clear view of the value that God has for each one of us, but for ourselves. So, it's like I ask inmates all the time, who is God? How does he feel about me? And how he feels about us is that he has this huge value for us, so much that he was willing to send Jesus to do all that he did to redeem us. And that is a wonderful, wonderful truth in communicating the value that God has for you. Well, this Sunday, Sherry and I will be in Knoxville, Iowa at Living Word Fellowship, and I will be doing some music as part of their month-long thing called October Rest. I'll be playing some songs and just hanging out with those folks up there. It's a great church. For those of you in the Des Moines area, you could come over and drive and see us. And other than that, we're just doing the deal. So let's pray. Father, thank you for encouraging us, Lord, that we are never too old to be used by you. Use us, Father. Give us faith to believe in your capability to use us, to do things through us, that our lives, no matter where we start, Lord, would have impact and value to those around us and to the kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, then, I will see you all Sunday morning, and we will hang out and do some stuff. God bless. Bye-bye.